A beginning Jeffrey Dahmer is on a high school bus that is transporting some students home. Unlike the other students, he is by himself and keeps staring out the window. Suddenly, he notices an adult man jogging nearby and feels fascinated. Even after being dropped off at home, he continues to stare at the man as if he has grown obsessed with him. When two teenagers ask him what's inside, Dahmer responds that he found a dead cat that he will dissolve in acid because his father is a chemist, giving him access to a variety of chemicals with which to carry out his experiments. The process freaks out the guys, but they still go with Dahmer to his father's shed. There, Dahmer explains it and mentions that he does it because he's interested in bones and anatomy, but the boys think he's just pouring water to trick them. Following this, we are introduced to Dahmer's family. His father Lionel is a college chemist, while his mother Joyce is a housewife. The two constantly fight over trivial matters, having a negative effect on their children. Speaking of children, Dahmer breaks a jar containing roadkill that he had earlier dissolved. The animal starts emitting a foul stench, and as a result, the boys are grossed out. They then call Dahmer a freak before at school. Dahmer is frequently teased for being odd. He sits by himself and occasionally steals preserved animals from the biology class. One day, when Lionel gets home from a hard day's work, he becomes furious to learn that Dahmer is still obsessed with dead animals. In a fit of rage, he storms inside the house. Lionel has a younger brother named David who is innocent but loud despite being rude to his wife. The following day at school, Dahmer tries unsuccessfully to strike up conversations with a few of his classmates. Later, as he sits by the road feeling dejected, he spots the same jogger from earlier and becomes excited. That evening, when he gets home, Lionel apologizes for being harsh with him and gives him a set of dumbbells. Dahmer accepts the advice and begins exercising, but he also secretly keeps up his pastime of torturing animals and gathering their bones. When a teacher notices Dahmer not paying attention one day in class, she asks him a question, but the slothful to everyone's delight in the class, Dahmer responds in a light-hearted manner, making everyone in the room laugh. Dahmer later resumes making strange noises in the hallway because he realizes that it's his best opportunity to make friends. Days go by and Dahmer continues to act in this manner in an effort to catch the attention of some people. Eventually, his efforts pay off when a group of teenagers approach him at the cafeteria and ask him to sit with them. They are deaf, and they make fun of him for pretending to have a seizure and making a mockery of himself on the floor. To spice up their senior year, Mike and Neil quickly form an unbreakable bond with the other three. In one instance, they get Dahmer to make strange noises in the library. Dahmer's social life starts to get better, but his personal life is going downhill. One day when he gets home, he learns that his ex-drug addict mother is having a relapse. He tries his best to convince her to go to the hospital, but she doesn't listen. Disregarding this, Dahmer goes on with his life. One day, while fishing with his friends, he catches a fish and stabs it repeatedly. Meanwhile, Dahmer makes it a habit of hiding behind some bushes on the road and stalking the male jogger. It seems as though he has developed feelings for the man. One day, however, through his friend Mike, he finally learns the man's identity. He is Dr. Matthews, a well-known physician in the area. That evening, when he gets home, he finds his parents arguing once more. Lionel then brings out a bottle of alcohol to calm himself. Dahmer continues his hobby of killing animals and dissecting them to view their insides as he arrives at school late and intoxicated. A few days later, while on a school tour in Washington, D.C., Dahmer and his classmates are placed in a room with Charlie, the only other person of color in the class. Surprisingly, Dahmer asks his friend if his insides are the same as everyone else as expected. After Dahmer returns from D.C., Charlie is offended by the question but does nothing because he is probably used to hearing racial slurs. The following morning, Dahmer fakes a cold to finally meet his crush Dr. Matthews. However, things take an awkward turn when the doctor discovers that the boy has an abnormal erection after the examination. It turns out that Joyce and Lionel are getting separated, and the latter is planning to leave the house and stay in a motel for the time being. The news has a negative impact on Dahmer's psyche and keeps him up that night. Spilled out, word quickly gets around the town, and people start to think they must have a psychotic person among them. The following day, every student, including Dahmer's friends, is discussing the upcoming prom. Dahmer attempts to join in the conversation as well, but Mike teases him by saying that no girl would want to go out with a weirdo like him. Despite this, Dahmer remains optimistic and approaches Bridget, a freshman girl. He politely asks her out to the prom, but she declines as one would expect. However, Dahmer, being the clever guy that he is, makes up a rumor that freshman girls who attend the prom with senior boys automatically become popular. When Dahmer goes to get some drinks for himself, Bridget Neal approaches him and apologizes for the scene they caused at the mall. Dahmer accepts the apology and heads back to Bridget, but when it's time to dance, he feels awkward and doesn't look her in the eye, making it obvious that Dahmer is not in love. The next night, the two awkwardly go to the prom, and Dahmer's friends are shocked to witness the sight. The two start talking about friendship, but unlike Neil, the arrogant Durf refuses to apologize for treating his friend like a circus animal. This enrages Dahmer, and he cunningly invites him to his home for some beers. But once both of them are inside, Durf gets freaked out when he finds Dahmer awkwardly dressed. The film ends with the revelation that Hicks accompanied Dahmer to his home on June 18, 1978, but that he was never heard from again. Dahmer was finally apprehended for the murder of 17 men and boys in July 1991, 13 years after the killings. Thank you for watching. Why don't you consider subscribing while you're here? We have the best recaps around and would love to have you part of our community. Thank you and see you in the next one.